Everyone, and this is Rahul Reddy. I'm from Career Launcher Bangalore, and I'm here for this session on 15 days to CLAT 2025. As some of you would know, I am the All India third ranker for CLAT 2024. Lesser known fact is I've also given CLAT 2023, where I was the All India 15th rank. Right? Now, this largely comes because of my long experience with aptitude entrance exams specifically. So I started my journey with CAT and then various other aptitude entrance exams. And fundamentally also a very strong focus on the verbal area. And as you all know, reading section is a large part of the CLAT exam, right? So that's really the focus right now. Now we're going to just cover a few items at the same time kind of taking questions, right? So I'll briefly stop in between to give questions because I can't focus on both the message and the questions. So just hold on to the questions for some time, and we'll keep giving small breaks in between where I'll focus exclusively on the questions. Okay? So this is broadly what we seek to cover today, right? What is the score that I need? What is this crucial 120 minutes? How do I optimize these particular time? Focusing on elimination, that big thing that is supposed to increase our accuracy and make us faster, the mythical sea beast creature. Then we will look at area by area. We'll spend a little bit of time each of these areas with some tips, right? Most of you are well prepared for this exam. Some of what I say might be repetitive. That's okay. But I'm sure there'll be something to learn, right? So small tips as far as English and logic, a little bit for GK, legal and QA also. And then we will look at what is exactly that I can do in the last 15 days. We'll focus on, I'm sure all of you are giving mocks. Some of you are giving 3 mocks, sometimes 4 mocks a week. Now I'm not worried about the number of mocks. I'm more worried about, are we learning the right lessons from the mocks, right? So that's going to be an important area that we'll focus on, right? So this is the CLAT 24, the cutoff that we are looking for. 19. This is general category. I'm not looking at Karnataka domicile, right? So 99.25 for NLS Bangalore, 97.75 for Nalsar, 96 for NUJS Calcutta, right? So 2-3 things quickly that we understand. One is whenever an exam is easy, right, the scores go up. That's the first part. Second thing that happens is the scores are also bunched together. So you see the gap between NLS Bangalore, Nalsar and NUJS is very, very less, right? That is also the nature of the exam. The nature of the paper determines how much of a gap is there between these areas, right? Okay. Now, if you look at the older exams, you will see, right, the cutoff for Bangalore was 92.75, 103.5, 104.5. So, of course, these were all 150 question papers. Okay. So, anyway, so what really are we saying, right? Obviously, the difficulty level of the paper matters. Obviously, last year's paper was very easy, and therefore that required an almost 100 kind of a score to get into NLS Bangalore. But keeping in mind that difficulty level can change, we are predicting a score band of 85 to 100. Remember, this is non-domicile general category, right? For other categories, you'll have to make your adjustments, right? Normally, OBC category doesn't change by much. It changes about 5 marks or so. But yeah, and then you add domicile, then the predictions are very, very difficult. So suppose you want to say Telangana domicile, Nalsar, what is it ranked? Then I think you should contact the local office. Because, one person cannot track the domicile, multiple categories, cutoffs across all of these areas. Right? But let's take this number, 85 to 100. Right? The bulk has to come from reading section because reading section contributes 80 out of 120 questions, right? So 80 with an accuracy of 80 or more, right? So that should get you a score of anywhere between 55 to 65, right? So this is needed. Anything lower than 55, it's going to be very, very difficult to get to the top colleges. And if the paper is easy, then you will need a 65 or 65 plus kind of a score. GK, a good score again depends on difficulty level. Last year was ridiculously easy GK with more than half the answers actually there in the passage itself, right? So then that goes, the pendulum swings towards 25, right? But if you have a tougher GK, right, then the pendulum could swing the other side to about 15. But again, remember, anything less than 15, then you will struggle. You will struggle to get the kind of score required if you're getting less than 15. Right? Similarly, QA depends on two things actually. One is the difficulty level of the QA section. It also depends on how much time do you have for QA. Right? For example, last year QA was easy. What happened to some people is they got bogged down in the lengthy legal part. They got bogged down because a couple of logical passages were tricky. They wasted a lot of time there. By the time they came to quant, they didn't have enough time. Then you struggle. Right? Remember, you need time for quant. 15 to 20 minutes of time is required for quant. If you have 15-20 minutes and paper is easy, you'll try to score about 10. If you have 15-20 minutes and the paper is tough, then you try to get 5 or 6 marks. Right? So that's the balance that I'm looking at. There is a narrow band here. Right? You cannot say that I'll get a 0 in quant and I will get into NLS Bangalore. At least in the general category, it is not going to happen. Similarly, you cannot say that I'll get a 6 or 7 in GK and still qualify. It's not going to happen. Right? And while time management is a very, very important thing this exam, I'm sure a lot of people have clear-cut plans on what you want to do. Right? If your numbers are different from these numbers, don't worry. If it is working for you, that's all we need. Right? But broadly, this is what we are saying. 25 to 30 minutes for English, 25 to 30 minutes for logic, 35 to 40 for legal, 10 to 15 for GK, and 15 to 20 minutes for QA. Now, you can obviously adjust these numbers. Right? Why do I say 25 to 30? Why not just say 25 or 30? The reason is the paper can be difficult. The paper can vary a little bit. Last year, we had only 4 passages of English, and they were very straightforward. Probably even 25 is too much. You could go to 20 minutes and do them. Right? But that's an exceptionally easy paper. Right? If you go back 2 years, you had a fairly tough English paper. Then you might need that extra 5 minutes and need to go to 30. Right? So you can increase or decrease the time depending on the difficulty level. You should do it, but you should do it consciously. You should not lose track of how much time you are spending. Right? It's not that I don't know how much time I spent. No, you should always know. So you're saying that, look, this paper is tricky, this paper is lengthy, therefore I am deliberately adding 5 minutes to English, which I will try to make up elsewhere. So it has to be a careful, deliberate decision to increase or decrease the time. Okay. So that's the flexibility part. Okay. Now, how do you know if you're going on time or not? I think that's a big thing. A lot of students have a plan. They're not able to stick to the plan. Why does it happen? Because they don't have a system of checking time. As simple as that. What is a system of checking time? Okay. Suppose I'm writing the exam, CLAT exam. After some time, I check the time. I started the exam at 2. Now it is 2:32. So what do I do? How does that information help me? I have to. So what does it mean? It means I have already spent 32 minutes. Okay. But I have to then come. What does it mean? It's a good thing or a bad thing? It depends on how many questions I have solved. Right? So the connection is always between the time and the number of attempts. So to create a simple, effective system of checking the time, check the time after every passage. So for example, my plan in English is 5 passages in 25 minutes or 5 minutes per passage. So when do I check the time? After every passage. Passage 1 complete, check time. It should be 2:05. Passage 3 complete, time should be 2:15. If it is a little more than 2:15, Okay, then I know that I'm going slightly late. If it is less than time 2:15, then I know I'm going slightly fast. That helps me adjust the time. Does it make sense? Right. Now, coming to this is fundamentally for the reading section, right? How to manage the time. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this. First is read for ideas, concepts, not facts, data, details, examples. Okay. Now, as a teacher, I spend a lot of time taking classes. I try to understand where students are going wrong. I watch them while they're taking marks, and you will see certain things that I have noticed. Right. One is people read the passage too slow. Okay. So why do people read the passage too slow? The logic is very simple, because they are trying to memorize the passage. Right? Whenever they say, I want to retain, I want to remember, it's going to take too much of time. Right? It doesn't work. Right? So remember, you don't need to memorize. The passage is right there in front of you. It's not going to disappear. Similarly, I have seen people that they underline things, which is not a bad thing to do. But when I see their question paper at the end of the exam, the entire passage is underlined. Please tell me, what do you achieve by underlining the entire passage? So the whole purpose of underlining is to identify key ideas, concepts. In legal, you're trying to identify principles. So be very careful in what you underline. Don't randomly keep underlining everything. Right. But how do you decide which one is important, which is not? That's why I said the ideas and concepts are important. The details, the facts, the data, the examples, the analogies are not important. Right? And when you focus on reading, you're not trying to memorize, you're trying to understand. Comprehension is the key. Right? That's what it is called. It's called English comprehension. Okay. And when you mentally summarize, please simplify ruthlessly. The whole passage should come down to about 5 simple ideas. Right? So 2 to 3 minutes for reading a regular size passage, and the rest of the time for the questions. See, if you take too much time to read a passage, what happens? Either A, you overshoot the time which is planned for the entire section. So instead of taking 30 minutes for English, you take 40. So some other section suffers. The second possibility is you take too much time reading the passage, you try to answer the questions too fast. You say, I can't refer back to the passage, there's no time. I rush reading the question, I rush reading the answer choices. I miss a word here, I miss a word there. I make silly mistakes. My accuracy goes down. Okay, so be very, very careful. You can refer back to the passage. Referring back to the passage doesn't take too much time, and it significantly improves your accuracy. Similarly, you should not rush reading the questions, because if you misunderstand the question, then gone. Similarly, if you rush the choices, you miss a key word, and then you forget you're supposed to eliminate something, you don't eliminate it, you pick the wrong choice, you fall into traps, you get sidetracked. Remember, 2 choices are normally very quick to eliminate, maybe within 10 seconds. Spend extra 30 seconds on the close choices. Okay, so it's not just theory. Let's see if we can actually look at an option, right? This is a passage from CLAT 24. Right? Take a couple of minutes, go through this. Then we will, after you read it, we will deconstruct it. We will try to look at it and say, okay, what really are the key ideas from this particular passage? What is the details? What part should be remembered? What part is important to comprehend? How would you reduce this passage into 4 or 5 key ideas? Okay, let's take a look. That's it. These are the key ideas of this particular passage. Right. Students have been abbas over artificial intelligence, can do homework, programmers, productivity, take away jobs. These are all examples of what AI can do. It's just context setting. AI can do a lot of things. These are some examples. Not important. As much as digitization and transform the country, blah, 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 falana, dimkana, there is widespread feeling some point horizon. All that is context. Right? AI will change things in a fundamental and frightening ways. That means AI will have massive impact on the world. And therefore, regulating AI is important. That's it. How should it be regulated? Telecom regulatory has made a case, independent authority, responsible development, use of AI, global agency, all that is details. We can't remember all that details. Okay? Right. Then next paragraph. New para, new idea. What's the new idea? India is very far behind US and China as far as AI technology is concerned. Right? The country, China, is very much in the game. PhDs, they're ahead. Investments in AI chip, they're ahead. Domestic generative models, they have, which we don't have. What are all these things telling us? It is evidence to suggest that China is ahead of India. But that was already the main point that came in the first paragraph itself. The scientific accomplishments of India's Chandrayaan. Hey, how did Chandrayaan come here? Chandrayaan is not AI, no? This is an analogy. You are comparing. In Chandrayaan, India did something good and there will be benefits from that technology. Similarly, if India can do something like Chandrayaan in AI, there will also be a lot of benefits. It's a comparison kind of thing. Important? Not really. It's an analogy. Analogies, examples help you understand a concept. They are not important in their own right. Does it mean that no question can come from any of the other sentences? It can come. But then you will come back, refer and find it. Right? So what do we need to do? We need to create domestic Indian models for AI, for which proactive government is required, and government can ensure that academia and industry will collaborate. Right? And last point is government is not the only thing. Look at it. Indian courts should engage, Indian schools need to think, etc., etc. So all institutions need to work together. That's broadly what they are saying. Now look at the other non-important part. Understand what it means. Students, artificial intelligence, homework, programming, productivity, job loss, all this is context. It is kind of giving you an introduction of why AI is important. A global agency around similar lines, G20 Leaders Summit, even American MNC Microsoft, blueprint from AI governance in India, great size, diversity, data points, interesting. All these are basically supporting the idea that India needs to have its own regulatory authority, its own regulation for responsible development of AI. Details. Right? Second paragraph, the entire second part of the second paragraph is an analogy. We are comparing India's scientific progress in Chandrayaan and the benefits that we will get from that, and saying we need to do something like that in AI also. Right? We have something like that in the third paragraph also. Missing this bus will after all be even more costly than missing the chip research one. That means India fell behind in chip research. If you also fall behind in AI, then the danger is much more. Right. Now, if you look at it, which of the following is the author most likely to agree with? Okay, I'll keep it simple. Author is most likely to agree with. I will say which of the following is true. Author wrote the passage. So which of the following is true as per the passage? Leave the regulation to market forces. Clearly, I remember the author is saying government should play a proactive role. So gone. Government control of AI is inefficient, but he's saying government should play a role. Private companies design the most AI efficient governance models. Government-led initiatives of AI regulation and development lead to efficient, positive outcomes. There is no government here, therefore D is the answer. Main argument of the passage. What is the main argument of the passage? Regulating AI is important. Government should play a proactive role, and they should involve academia, industry, and all other institutions. That's the point. Okay. Now, look at it. Governments that don't engage with generative AI, remaining at the receiving end, stay risk averse with nothing to lose. Contradicting the passage. Passage is saying government should be proactive. Governments that lead the initiative in regulating and responding to advancement of AI tools benefit the most from them. The problem is here we are talking about government benefiting. Right? Governments that actively incentivize MNCs to participate in AI governance. That's not what the author is saying. Now it's really, these two choices went very quickly. Now we look at A and B. Governments that explore models of public-private partnership strike the right balance in regulating generative AI. Lead the initiative in regulating and responding. Okay. Now, when these two are close, you look close. Public-private partnership is only one of the things that government can do. Second, generative AI is a bit too narrow. We're talking about all kinds of AI tools. Right? So the important thing is government should lead, which is why A is better than D. B, C quickly 10 seconds. A, D requires additional 30 seconds, which is exactly what I was talking about. Now, this is a very specific thing. Based only on the author's statement that Indian courts should start engaging with a broader issue of non-human agency, that is basically AI generated, rather than wait for precedents to be set elsewhere. This is exact quotation from the passage. Based on this, so courts should take initiative, lay down the rules where no precedent exists. This looks good, but small tick. Why small tick? Because I have not seen other choices. Court should wait for precedent rather than wait for precedent. Contradiction. Court should stop relying on precedents and decide cases on the basis of judicial wisdom. Right? Extreme. You're saying courts should change the way of functioning. They should no longer accept precedents. That doesn't work. Precedents are the best possible safeguard. Sorry. That's not the point. So, A is the right answer. Missing this bus, which bus is this? AI, will be more costly than missing the chip research one. That, what can you infer from this? India missed the chip research. That was costly. This might prove even more costly. Okay. So India led chip research? No, it did not. It missed the bus. India was right in leaving regulation of chip research to MNCs? No. India should have played a role in chip technology? Yes. That was missing the bus. Should not have missed the bus. The failure to respond to new developments in chip was a bigger loss than generative AI? No, it's the opposite. Therefore, C. Okay, does it make sense? Very quickly, this is just a revision. Most of you know about this. Contradicting the facts and premises in the passage. We already saw examples of that. Right? This is very easy and it accounts for a lot of wrong answers. Extreme and far-fetched and alien. I think I missed out alien. Alien is basically information which is not present in the passage. So contradiction, extreme, and alien. These are the three most common types of wrong answers. Right? Sidetrack is one of the more difficult ones. Sidetrack has two large examples. One is partially correct. One part of the sentence is correct, then there is a word or phrase which changes the meaning. Or part of the sentence is not even there in the passage. The other thing is the answer is true as per the passage. Right? It might even be verbatim sentence from the passage, but it does not answer the given question. But what students do is they read and say, oh, this was there in the passage, so it is correct. Other two are less common, but they do come. Broad and narrow is where you're looking at what is the scope of the question. Here again, understanding what the question task is critical. What is the question asking? If you go broader scope or much narrower, for example, if this particular passage was talking about regulation of AI, right? So for example, if a question, if the answer choice specifically talks about ethics in AI, that is part of regulation, this would be narrow. So if somebody talks about regulation of technology in general, it will be too broad. It's not just AI technology, it's all technology. That will be too broad. And if you do only ethics in AI, it will be too narrow. That's the kind of example for broad and tone mismatch, largely based on positive, negative, and neutral. Right? So, for example, if the author is positive about something, but the answer choice is negative about it, so clearly there is a tone mismatch. Okay. So let's take our first of the designated breaks and see if there are some questions. Yes. Okay, let's quickly look at it. Oh, a lot of questions, huh? Okay. Let's see how many. Okay. So what is an ideal mock score? See, obviously, as I said, it's a range because each mock is slightly different in its difficulty level, right? So typically, we are still saying 85 to 100, though I think CL mocks 100 is a bit tough. So 85 to 95 is what I would look at. Another way to look at it is look at the percentile that you are getting. Right? Percentile tells you where you stand with respect to CL. See, let's be honest. So year after year, CL students have got something like 60 out of the top 100 ranks. Right? So if that is not a representative sample, then what is? So if you are getting a rank among CL students, then you have a very good chance in getting the actual CLAT rank. So Kavya, the question, yes, there is some fluctuation that is happening. I think what we have to do, especially what we can do in these last 15 days, is try to understand what is causing this kind of fluctuation. See, what is the learning that we are getting from the errors? So ideally, one is do the analysis as close to the actual mock as possible. So you finish the mock, take half an hour break, and then do the analysis. Then try to put yourself in the same mindset and say, when I marked C, what was I thinking? So if C and D are very close, you get it wrong, it's okay. There's not much learning you can have. But if you have made a clear-cut mistake, then there is a learning that happens. Right. During the exam, always focus on one passage, one question at a time. Don't think of is the test going well, not going well kind of stuff. See, when there are so many marks, some fluctuation is expected. It's not that, see, if from the first mark onwards, if your score went up by 3 marks, by now you should have crossed 120. So it's never going to be straight away linear path, right? You will have, like Sanju Samson hit a century, then he got a duck. So it happens. Karthikeya, that's exactly what I said. Typically, can you do a passage in 2 minutes? 3 max. Reading the passage should never take more than 3 minutes. Anshika, you're right. Percentages, ratios, averages. These 3 have been the most important, but we never know. There's too little data and you can't risk your career on saying that yahi aayega. I would say high probability that these will come, but the risk is too high. If you are ignoring other areas, the risk is too high. Right, we'll come to the GK part. Okay, so we'll cover some of the questions in going forward. Oh, this is something very important, right? We call it keep it simple, stupid, KISS rule. Right? How do we do that? For example, there are questions in English and logic which say, which of the following can be inferred? What can be implied? What can be concluded? Sometimes what is the author likely to agree? For all of them, I take it as which of the following is true as per the passage. Is it 100% same meaning? No, but it is 99% same or 95% same. Right? So yes, infer and conclude are slightly different, but that's a technical difference. Imply and infer are slightly different. That's a technical difference. But fundamentally, what you infer, what you conclude, what you imply are all things which are true as per the passage. Similarly, if you take a technical definition of assumption, it is an unstated premise. But my focus is much more on the premise aspect and not much on the unstated aspect. So I'm not going to look at and say this answer choice has already been mentioned in the passage, therefore it cannot be an assumption. I'm not going that route. I'm going that, look, unstated baad mein dekhenge. First, it's a premise. What does premise mean? Right? Premise is something which supports the conclusion. In fact, it is essential to the conclusion. Right? So, if the conclusion doesn't work without this premise, then it is an essential premise. Therefore, it is a valid assumption. The other way to look at it is, if the premise is essential to the conclusion, if you take the opposite of the assumption, negative of the assumption, then the conclusion should become invalid or at least significantly weaker. So check it. Take the opposite of the assumption and see what effect it has on the conclusion. If it weakens the conclusion or invalidates the conclusion, then great. That is the correct assumption. For main idea, again, two small tips. One is any question regarding main idea title. These are called general questions. They don't deal with a particular part of the passage. They deal with the entirety of the passage. Solve them in the end. That means a passage has 5 questions. Out of them, one of the question is main idea. Do it as the 5th question. Why? Because every question you solve, your understanding the passage becomes more. And therefore, by the time you finish 4 questions, you're in a much better situation to answer a main idea question. But here, think about the intent. Think about the author and say, okay, what is the author really trying to say? What is the intention? Why did the author write this particular passage? Similarly, strengthening and weakening. Normally, strengthen and weakening says, which of the following, if true, would strengthen or weaken a conclusion? For me, argument means conclusion. Right? The entire argument is written to prove the conclusion. Right? So I'll focus on the conclusion and say, okay, this is the conclusion. Then I start with the first choice. Answer choice 1 is true. What is the effect it has on the conclusion? It will either strengthen, weaken, or it is irrelevant. Right? If that is not the answer, go to option 2. Option 2, true. What effect on conclusion? Option 3, true. What effect on conclusion? Very similar. In English logic, I said read for ideas, read for concepts. In legal aptitude, I'm saying read for principles. Because these are the same principles which have to be applied. Very important, do not use outside knowledge. Some very basic, generally known stuff is okay. Okay. So, for example, is murder a crime? Don't you know, passage never says that murder is a crime. That much everybody is expected to know. Okay, but other than that, don't say that, okay, even if you don't know and say, oh, according to this principle, this contract is invalid types. Don't go there. Select an answer which is closest to the principle and based on the facts of the question. Sometimes 2 answers appear correct. Then you have to see which one is closer to the facts of the question. Remember, the question is giving you facts. Same logic, 2 choices are eliminated very quickly in logic. Take an extra 30 seconds for the remaining 2 choices. Okay, I'll not spend too much time here. This is again a passage which has come last year. Right? So, these are the key parts, the principles. A child born out of a void and voidable marriage can inherit parent share of the family joint property. Remember, it is not self-acquired property, it is the family property. A 3-judge bench headed by Chief Justice D.Y. Chandrabur, however clarified, child would not be entitled rights and property of any other person in the family. ठीक है, parent का मिल रहा है, किसी और का नहीं मिल रहा है. What is a voidable marriage and what is a void marriage? Both are given. Right? Most of you would know this, but ठीक है. Okay, now look at it. The basic first step is to understand how much share of the parent is there in the ancestral property. After that, it is like, what is the steps that you will take? Okay, not important. Once the share of deceased parent in the property is ascertained through a notional partition, his heirs, including children, by means of void and void will be entitled to their portion. You're basically saying, first find out how much money is there, then divide equally. Right? But it has to be the share of the ancestral property or the family property, not the self-acquired property of the parent. Now, what is the logic behind saying that people born out of voidable marriages also should get the same? It says that, look, Hindu Marriage Act has given legitimacy to children born out of these marriages. So according to Hindu Marriage Act, a child born out of a voidable marriage is a legitimate child. Now, if it is a legitimate child, then property also should come. Therefore, the same change which happened in the Hindu Marriage Act should also happen in the Succession Act. That's it. Nothing else is new in the bill. The three judge broken amended provision, Hindu Marriage Act, Section 16(3), larger bench, division bench, all that. Right? Now, for example, this is an observation of the judge, Justice Ganguly. With changing norms of legitimacy in every society, including ours, what is illegitimate, maybe legitimate, doesn't matter. Remember, operative part of the judgment kya hai? Rest is all remarks and comments. Judges can write pages and pages so that you understand, but the main operative part, that is the principles, that's already given. Now, GK obviously is a major concern area for a lot of people. So, a couple of small things that we'll talk about. One is in GK, when you do the marks, one out of two things are happening. Okay. One is I don't know the topic at all. I've never studied this topic. The second thing is I know the topic, but I don't remember this particular question. I don't think I studied this particular question. The third thing is I know the topic. I remember studying this question also, but I forgot. These are the three possibilities, right? And each of it is telling you some information. It is giving you some feedback. If you don't know the topic, that means your breadth is a problem. You have not covered enough topics. If this is happening again and again, that means you have not covered enough topics. If this is happening, you know the topic, I've read about this, but this particular question I don't know, which means the problem is with the depth. You have to go more in depth, including historical background of that particular issue. So, for example, what is Hezbollah? When was it founded? When did Hezbollah come into Lebanon? What are the previous actions that Hezbollah has taken? Who supports Hezbollah? What is their ideology, etc., etc. Just one part, right? The third part is you know the topic. You remember reading this question also. I mean, you remember what is being asked for, but right now it's not coming to mind. So this is a problem of not enough revision, right? So remember how we did GK sources, from sources to notes, notes to revision. And you guys are better at tech than us, so you know various things that people have been doing. People are using flashcards, people are using audio notes, people are listening to them while they are falling asleep, whatever works for you. But the fundamental concept is sources have to be reduced in size to notes so that those notes can be revised. Now, depending on your memory strength, 3 to 4 revisions are required, otherwise you will not remember at a crucial time. Right? Now, this is a little controversial. I tend to focus on more significant issues. Yes, sometimes completely arbitrary issue comes, but majority of the topics that have come in CLAT are very important or significant issues. My worry is that people are not doing enough background research. Right? For example, this year elections happened. But did somebody go back and study the first elections ever to be held in India? The first midterm elections. The first coalition government that was ever formed. So these things, have you done enough in-depth research or historical background? I think this is going to be an important issue. Okay. Before going to QA, one quick look at the questions. So are we getting the same number of passages in the exam? Similar is what I expect. So for example, instead of 4 passages, you may get 5. But I will not expect 8 passages of short time. Technically, it can happen. There is no rule which says it can't happen, but it is unlikely that they will tamper with the passage with the structure so much. Don't worry about me. See, how do I approach the exam? See, I'm very good at verbal, right? I've done this for a long time. That is the main part. I'm reasonably good at quant, but then quant was easy last year, right? So I didn't go with the idea of getting a rank. It just happened. In fact, if GK was not easy, I would not have got a rank, right? This year, for example, if GK is very tough, I won't get a national rank. That's okay. That's not my point. My point of writing the exam is so that I know what the pattern is. I know what works in the exam so that I can improve my teaching and my guidance of students. That is the whole point of my writing the exam. Yeah. So in the quant side, percentages, ratios, averages, and basics of calculations. Right? Some basic rules of geometry, etc., should be okay. So will time, speed, and distance come? I think it's unlikely, though technically it can come. And SICI can come, but then SICI is more extension of percentage than anything else. Okay. So Anushka, your answer, I think, let me put it simply. Probability is mathematical, and maths cannot be wrong. So if it is 50-50, it's like if you toss a coin, it will only come tails. It won't happen. Unless the coin is biased, it won't happen, right? So what is more likely to happen is when your guess between two close choices goes wrong, you remember it. When it goes right, you don't remember it, which is why you feel that that whenever whatever I pick goes out always as wrong. But let's look at it. One is when two choices are close, you need that extra 20-30 seconds, right? Sometimes it's like spot the difference between the two choices. Option choice 2, 3, exactly same except this word and this word. Then you understand, okay, what's really the difference between choice 2 and choice 3? Then if you still can't decide, you'll say, okay, I think choice 2 is more moderate. Relatively, choice 3 is more extreme, so I'll go with the more moderate option. Or I will look at which choice is more closer to the central idea of the passage. Hey, GK topic is there in my zone. You can just download. So yeah, the big ones, I think things like elections, etc., are fairly expected. But then the well-researched list is available in my zone. So just go ahead, take the look. Types of that. Okay, so with respect to mocks, I think you have to understand that mocks are a tool. Right? So what do you get out of the mock? One is, can we identify what our areas of strength and weakness are? Now, one of the big advantages in CL mocks is that they are national, truly national, in the sense that the number of people taking are across the country, and a lot of toppers come from this particular thing. So you're actually testing yourself against the best. Second, we could easily make the mock tougher, but that's not the point. Like if 2-3 of us sit together, we'll make a mock wherein getting 70 would be tough. But that's not the point. The point is that a mock should be as close to CLAT as possible. For example, we have never given a 600-word passage. Why? Because it has never come in CLAT like that. I know. I mean, I don't know every topper, but yes, we have got a lot of toppers from Bangalore where I have tracked. So yeah, there were people in 80s who got through. I don't remember somebody from low 70s something. High 70s and 80s, yes, there were a few who got a good rank. There was one girl who got an IELTS national rank. Narrowly missed the CLAT, but got a IELTS national rank. So see, again, I don't expect core philosophy passages to come, in the sense that even if they talk about philosophy, they will take philosophy, the kind of language that will come in a newspaper or magazine. They will not take a textbook, philosophy textbook type passage. Right? So there, of course, the few things that you can do is read basic philosophies of different types, understand the jargon, get some key principles. Right? So, for example, just do some Google and Wikipedia and say, okay, what are 10-15 important philosophy concepts? Just, it's not that what you read will exactly come, but you'll get comfortable with philosophy. See, I don't know Nalsar domicile specifically, but my experience with Karnataka domicile has been that it helps you by about 5 marks. So Nalsar without domicile, if it is 97, with domicile could be 90 to 92. I'm guessing, but it's an educated guess. So I think you have to understand what needs to be done. One is, see, it is finally, if you bring it down to, it's either attempts or accuracy. Right? If you're not attempting enough, there's no way you'll get. If you attempt only 90, how will you get 95? Nahi hoga. So attempts have to be high. Similarly, accuracy has to be reasonably good. Nobody will get every question correct, but you need to have something like 80% accuracy. Now you can get 70% accuracy in logic, I'm okay. But in English and legal, it has to be 80% plus. I think more than 2,000 people are writing, and these are the people who submit the scores, not people who take the mock and take it home types and all that. Kartikeya, there is no reason to skip a question if it is between two choices. Very simple logic. If you get it right, it is +1. If you get it wrong, it's only -1/4. Yes, 90 plus marks should be enough. Again, it depends on the paper. If it's very easy, then 90 may not be enough, but normally it should be enough. That's what I said. Spend time between the two close choices, extra 30 seconds, trying to see what is the difference. Normally, there is one word or two words which are a little different that changes the meaning. See, there are some choices where even faculty might disagree, but that happens in CLAT also. So about 2 or 3 questions will be controversial in every section, even in actual CLAT. Okay, so for those kind of questions, there is nothing much to learn. It depends on interpretation. But what are the other mistakes you're making? That is where the real learning is. Okay, let's move on a little bit. We go to QA. Okay. The first thing I think is very simple. You will attempt QA only if you have enough time to attempt everything else. In other words, if you have one legal passage left and a QA set left, obviously you'll prioritize the legal passage. Similarly, logic passage, English passage, you will always prioritize other areas over quant. Why? Because of something called marks per minute. Right? If somebody spends 30 minutes on English section and get 20, they're getting 0.67 marks per minute. So if somebody is spending, let us say, 35 minutes and getting 25 marks in legal, That is basically 5 by 7. So about 0.7 marks per minute. Comparatively, in maths, will not get. Comparatively, we are saying put 15 minutes and get some 6 marks. So you'll be lucky if you can get 0.5, 0.6 marks per minute. So in that sense, because the every additional minute gives you more value in other sections, we said don't sacrifice some other section and do quant in general, unless you are very, very good at quant. But what is important really is you have to finish other sections and find the time to do quant, which means that the key is, can you do all other sections in 105 or 100 minutes, leaving you with 15-20 minutes free for quant? Right? This has to be done. So unless you're exceptionally good at quant, you will need that 15 minutes to 20 minutes. Now, once you have that, next step is to prioritize the sets. Right? Which set should I start with? You look at three things. Is it familiar? Have I done something of this type before? What is the big advantage is if you have done something similar before, you know exactly how to proceed. You know what kind of table to make. You know how to organize the data. How much data is there? Greater the amounts of data, the more time it will take. Then, okay, when I call it cuteness of numbers, basically I'm saying, are the numbers round figures which are easy to calculate? Okay. Now, okay, this is a Latin phrase, which one of my favorite phrases. It means make haste slowly. If you try to rush, you make mistakes and you actually go slow. Why? Because you're doing something, then you get caught, you go back, you cut something, redo. Solve once. Don't rush it. Solve once, get it right. Right? And don't do lots and lots of rough work. In many cases, so much of rough work is not needed for the kind of questions that CLAT gives. Answer choice is a part of the question. Please use answer choices and don't just calculate, do long calculations. Right? Use the answer choice. If the answer choices are there's a big gap between answer choices, use it. Second, for quant, especially those who are a bit weak, solve the same question set multiple times. Stunningly, the second and third time you solve the same set, the clarity that you get is phenomenal. So from the learning perspective, the second and third reading is very, very good for learning. Okay, let's try and see what we are looking at here. Right? So what do we give? Automobile is the most preferred method, allow you to cover large distance quickly, very good. All story. This entire thing is bullshit. There is no purpose. Okay. Now, survey. Percentage distribution of cars in 4 states and ratio of diesel, petrol and electric. Okay. So, quantity of data is not too much. There are 4 states and 3 types of cars. Okay. That's a good plus point. Second, the numbers. See the numbers. 8,000. 15%. 20%, 30%, 35%. All nice round figure. It is not 34.67. Similarly, 3:4:1. When you see a ratio, add it up. 3:4:1 adds up to 8. 8,000. Nice. Okay. 5:3:2 adds up to 10. Very nice. Okay. 10 out of 8,000. Easy. 10 out of 20%. Easy. 4:3:2. 4 plus 5, 9. 9 plus 3, 12. 12 out of 30%. Right? 6 is a common factor. 7:5:2, 14. 35. Common factor 7. Useful. So the numbers are cute. And by now you know कि easy हो जाएगा. Right? So I just put the numbers here, right? 8,000, 15%, 341. For example, I can simply look at this 15% as 10% plus 5%. 10% will be 1,000. Sorry, 10% of this will be 800. 5% will be 400. Now, 341 adds up to 8. That means 300, 400, 100. This is out of 800. This will be out of 400, will be half. So 150, 200, 50. So total diesel, petrol, electric will be 450, 600 and 150. That's it. Right? So 532 out of 20%. 20% is clearly 1600. 1600 divided in the ratio 532. Right? So 1000, 5 out of 10. So 800, 3 out of 10. Okay, so 480 and 2 out of 10. Okay, 320. Done. So let's look at some interesting things here. For example, 45% of electric cars in state 4 are AC, remaining are non-AC. What is the number of non-AC cars? Right? So 45 are AC and we want non-AC. So how much is that? 55. We want 55. 55% of the cars. In which state? State 4. State 4 is how much? 35%. So, okay, let's start. You start with the total number of cars, 8,000, out of which state 4 is 35 by 100, out of which electric is 2 by 14, out of which non-AC is 55 by 100. People will see, why are you doing such large calculation? No, it is not a large calculation. Putting all the numbers together makes it easy. Think of how many cancellations I will get. 100. 2 zeros go. One more zero goes. I'm left with 8. 7 twos are. 7 fives are. 5 and 2 is 10. So this 10 is also gone. 2 and 8 is 4. So I'm basically left with 4 into 55. Right? Now, for example, the third one, just taking as an example. What is the ratio of diesel cars in state 4 to electric cars in state 3? Okay. State 4 is 35%. 35. And diesel cars in state 4. Diesel is 5 out of 14. Okay. Then compared to state 3 had 30%. And in 30%, you are looking at electric cars. Electric cars is how much? 4 is to 5 is to 3. So 3 by 12. Somebody can ask, why 8,000 I have not taken? Because it's a ratio. There will be 8,000 left here and 8,000 here. They'll cancel anyway. So 7 twos, 7 fives. 6 twos, 6 fives. This 2 gets cancelled. So what do we have here? And 5 and 5 also gets cancelled. So effectively you have 5 is to 3. Done. Okay. So use the answer choices. One. Second, put big calculations together. The larger the numbers, more cancellation will happen. Okay. So before we reach the final section, let's quickly see if there's any more. Gel pens, I think there is no restriction against gel pens, but we'll see when the hall ticket comes, we'll see the instructions there. I think what you have to look at is look at which pen is easier for OMR. The risk is that if there's any leakage on the OMR, if the ink spreads or stuff like that, then it becomes a painful thing. Or if you underline in one page and the background, it is visible on the other page, that kind of stuff. Right? So whatever pen you're using right now, it's comfortable, use it types. So Venom boss, I think you know your problem, right? If you're getting 5 in GK, then 5 is the big problem. That has to be sorted. Now, how much can you do in the last 15 days? We don't know, but that you know where to focus right now. So I think Sanskriti, one thing you can do is just take a couple of days break. Sometimes that also helps. See, too much worry does not help. So I think it's also 15 days. One of the key things to do is to get in peak physical, mental, and emotional health. A lot of people are taking too much stress. Now, I understand it's important. I understand you work very hard for this exam. But look, any exam of this nature, there will be some winners and some people who will not make it. Right? It is not a judgment that you are good or not good. Right? It's just an exam. It's like one tournament. Sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. Right? So we obviously aim to do well. We are doing our best. In terms of students are doing the best. We are trying to help. But understand the fact that it's okay. It's okay to not do well. Right? Because otherwise you're putting too much stress on yourself. So one of the things I say is, if your score is regularly in the 85 range, one particular mark it falls to 60. Don't analyze. Just throw that away. Throw that paper. Don't even look at it. If 85 goes to 80, then you can learn something from it. If 85 goes to 60, it just means that you had an off day. Just throw it away. See, I think one part is logical reasoning. The best thing really, for example, what are we doing at Bangalore? We are the senior faculty are going center by center and saying, calling every student who's interested that we'll have 3-hour, 4-hour doubt clearing sessions. We're saying bring all the marks and bring material from anywhere. Come, gather all your doubts and we'll explain. Right? So what are we trying to do? Sometimes the written solution may not be clear enough for you to understand, which is exactly why the faculty help is there. Okay, so do meet faculty. They will definitely help you. And yes, there are some problematic questions. I am not defending that no, every question in CL mark is perfect. There are some problematic questions, but the number of errors that you are making is not only those 2-3 questions. You are making other errors, and that is where the real learning is. See, yeah, revision is largely on GK, right? In other areas, you're not trying to revise everything. In English and logic, you're trying to see, is there 1 or 2 small things that I can change which will make an error? For example, let us say I am not very good at tone questions. So can I do a little bit of practice on that? I'm not able to identify extreme options. I'll work on that. Total revision of all English and logic is not required. But in GK, yes. GK, all the notes that you have made, you have to revise. Because otherwise it doesn't stick in the head. I think just check with your batch. There are online doubt clearing sessions also. I'll put in a word with the product head to see if more doubt clearing. So the way I understand it, logic doubt clearing session chahiye, right? So I'll ask somebody to set up that. See, as I said, QT, it is important that you don't worry about new material. Resolve the good questions. Take the older marks, pick the questions, solve it again. It's beautiful. Trust me, you'll thank me after this that, Acha, when I first solved this, it looked like a very difficult thing, but now when I solve it, it looks very easy. That's what you get by right. So if one section is troublesome, and if it is not the same section, which basically means two things. One is your time management could be going wrong. Second is that there is fatigue, that you're getting tired in between. Okay, so work that out. I'll pass on the message for the Guwahati Center. Yeah. Right? So that is test T. Yeah. So that's the fundamental. If it is the same area that is weak, then you know. For example, I met a student couple of days back getting a score of 85. GK score is about 10 average. So we know exactly what is wrong. All other things are in place. GK has to go up. One or two other areas you can improve a little bit, but GK is the main area. So that is very clear. Right? But if different sections are going wrong, so there are two possibilities. One is that it is somewhere time management. You overshot the time, then you have to rush something else. Especially happens in the fourth section, right? Or you just tired, like too much of reading, and then you're not mentally completely in there, right? So one part which I think I'm going to stress a lot is that you have to be in all three things: physical, mental, and emotionally. You have to be strong in this 15 days. Okay, so what do I mean? One is sleep. One of the biggest things that I see with students is this: they have irregular sleep, they're cutting short on their sleep. Please do not do this. When you are this young, you think you are invincible, that nothing will affect you. You can sleep for 4 hours, get up, and still do. It doesn't work that way. It takes a toll. Don't do that. Second, don't take too much stress, right? Uh, have a support system. Talk to parents, talk to friends, call up old friends, call up, close relatives. So make sure that emotionally also you're in the right place. I am not a student, I'm a faculty. Yeah. So see, I'm sure there have been mock discussions which are held. So their elimination was done to show. But I'm making sense again. Connect with the faculty; they will explain that the lot of the questions were solvable. And yes, compared to last year, it is a bit difficult because last year was exceptionally easy paper. Huh. So Aditya, that happens to a lot of people. People get a little, tired. There's fatigue. So I think one is get used to spending 2 hours without a break at home. The second thing is you can take very small, mini, micro breaks. So even during an exam, sometimes I take a 30-second break. So completely close my eyes and I do either a mantra or I do a reverse counting from 30 to 1. It's a small 30-minute break, but it's like closing unnecessary windows in a computer. It makes it slightly faster. So yes, I think I spent time on the logic and RC part. Keep it simple. Don't overthink questions. That's another problem with some students, especially good students. They go deeper into the passage than even the question paper setter. Right? The question paper setter is not doing deep research on the passage. So don't overcomplicate and justify all kinds of answers. What if your gut feel, if you're a good student, if your gut feel says 3 is correct and you have a logical reason for it, mark it. Don't say, no, if I think of it in that manner, then 4 also is right. No. The direct, obvious answer is the right answer. Okay. Yeah. Malleshwaram is in my control. I will get it done. Yes. So I agree. As I said, there were a few questions in which were problematic. We have highlighted those questions, sent it back to the head office to make corrections. So I understand it is a mistake. There are not too many of them. That's the other concern. Sometimes you feel that is the only reason why I'm getting low scores. Okay. So there were a few questions which asked for outside knowledge, and that was wrong. And we are getting it corrected. Right. I think the latest mock doesn't have anything like that. So I think prenuptial agreements, there was a passage which was a little problematic. Yeah, I understand that. But I'm saying I'm being honest. I'm not defending that every question was correct, right? I'm accepting that mistakes are there, but you also need to be honest and say, look, it is not only those questions that are the reason why your scores are going down, right? Because that is where you lose out. So those 2 3 questions are not the only ones. If you made 6 mistakes, there are other 3 mistakes that have happened. That's where the learning is there. New sheets in legal, I have to check that. Let me see if I can do that. No, as I said, if we still have 15 days and none of the mock scores really count, it's only the exam on 1st of December that counts, right? So, where Manvi, were all the last mile sheets done? Okay, let me see what I can do there. Okay, so coming back, okay, these are very important things, I think, for kind of life lessons a little bit, right? Focus on what is in your control. Too many people are asking what will come in GK. It's not in our control. Will the exam be easy? Will the exam be difficult? These are not in our control. What is in our control is what we can do in these 15 days. Make sure you analyze the mock. Try to learn from each of these. Small things. I think I spent too much time on this question. I marked C as the answer because I missed this particular word. Right? I forgot to see the except in the option. I wrote 7 into 6 as 48. So this is just examples. But we try to understand that we go back into the mindset of the exam and say, okay, half an hour back I was writing this exam. What was I thinking? What logic did I use to mark this as the answer? Right? And there you say, okay, what other way I could have thought of? Now, obviously, discussions with faculty help. Discussion within the student group also helps. A lot of my best students are, they first debate among themselves, then they come to us. Right? Again, I have been lucky enough to have a lot of toppers from CL Bangalore in the last few years. And one of the key things is that it's not compulsory, but a lot of people worked in groups. Of course, there have been solo guys and girls who also cleared, but a lot of people also kind of supported each other. Okay? So, in terms of timelines, I'm saying, look, I'm not specifying times, but 6 to 8 hours. This is especially for people who don't have school. Either they've taken a holiday or they've taken a drop year, etc. 6 to 8 hours you can do. For others who are going to school, etc., 3 to 4 hours, right? Maybe 5. Please don't push too much. I don't want burnout, right? That one additional hour may not help you so much, but if you physically or emotionally get drained, that is a bigger worry for me. Okay, please, one of the reasons why scores are dropping for some of you is the stress. Find what works for you, de-stress. Right? For me, for example, bike rides and badminton is what I do for stress relief. Find out what works for you. You like violent movies? Good. Find the most violent movie on TV and then enjoy. Or you want to go play PUBG or something, play. But find a way to de-stress. Okay. Then also please do not uh, forget the other exams. There's IELTS coming up. There is SLAT coming up. Some of you are giving LNAT for OPGINDAL, right? The today's news, Euler Goa, which is a new law school set up by the Bar Council of India, they are accepting CLAT scores this time, right? So keep track, make sure that you are not putting all eggs in one basket. Look at the options that we have. Consider CLAT, other CLAT colleges, other exams, other alternate options also. Again, it looks bad that I'm talking about this just before CLAT, but sometimes the last dates get over. So what do? You need to have options in place. You can happily leave them. If you get into a top NLU, then you can happily say, okay, I applied for SLAT, but I won't write it. Nice. That's fine. Last year, for example, before IELTS, CLAT results came in. So some people said, I won't write the exam. That's great. But in case you need it, make sure that application and preparation are in place. Okay. So that's broadly it from my side. Yeah. Good sleep is important. Yeah. Typically, we say that take breaks every 2 hours. Normally, we say that 45 minutes, Pomodoro technique and all that. But here we are talking about an exam for which 2 hours of concentration is required. So don't take small, short bursts, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, keep taking breaks. Try to focus for 2 hours at a time because you're practicing for an exam which is 2 hours in duration. Done. Analytical reasoning for IELTS. Yeah, we'll do that. That's exactly what I'm saying. It is not there are some questions where I admit they may not be much learning, and I'm the first one to openly tell the student, yeah, ignore this question, there's no learning here. But that's not the only mistake you made. Right? There are a lot of other questions where you have made a mistake. There's nothing wrong with the question. Right? So if only those debatable questions are the only questions you've got wrong, then you must have got 105. One mock a day is a bit too much, but typically, I think you won't have enough time to analyze and change things. So, yeah, my recommendation is 3, but then I know students who are taking one mock a day. But in general, I'd say you'll need time to analyze that mock also. Okay, then. So that's it for today. Best wishes from all of from me, and yep, I'll take and pass on the feedback also to respective centers. I think there were some things that you wanted, which I'll see if I can provide for Bangalore as well as other centers. Okay. So on behalf of the entire team at CL, uh, right, our best wishes for you. And in our books, all of you are winners. And we'll keep doing a few sessions like this. And of course, on the day of CLAT itself, we'll have a lot of analysis that's happening. And yep, thank you so much and good night.